Steel frames aren't necessarily mainstream, but that doesn't mean that they're any less relevant. This is the State Bicycle Co. 4130 Trail Mountain Bike. It's steel, it's $1,500, and it comes with some surprisingly legit components. This just might be one of the best budget bikes that I have ridden in a long time. State Bicycle Co. did send me this bike so that I could review it. However, I do actually have to send it back unless I decide to keep it. And you'll have to wait for the end of the video to see if I send this back or not. So why was I interested in this bike? Well, I love hardtails and I wanted one again. And for $1,500, this thing looked like a steal. Pun intended. For that, you're getting a proper air fork, hydraulic disc brakes, tubeless-ready wheels and good tires, and a solid drivetrain, all on a steel frame. Now, I went ahead and added the optional $199 P&W dropper post, which honestly, dropper posts are essential nowadays, so it's kind of a no-brainer if you're gonna get a bike. Have them toss it in the box as well. Now, let's talk about the frame real quick. This is my first ever steel frame, and I was so excited. I've always wanted to try a steel frame. Now, what's so special about a steel frame, you might be wondering? Steel frames are able to absorb the vibration, stuff like that, in a way that makes everything just feel so much nicer. Now, that's probably not the most scientific or probably even the most correct definition, but all I know is when you're riding a steel frame, everything kind of gets smoothed out and everything's less harsh. Now, I went with the small/medium frame size, which is gonna top out for riders at about 5'10", but I'll be honest, riding this bike, there is a ton of reach on here and it does not feel small at all. Now, this frame has really good trail geometry. Up front on the head tube, we have 65 degrees, which is quite slack and kind of proper for a trail bike. On the seat tube here, we have a 74.4 seat tube angle, which is not super steep, but it's not really slack either. Now, there are a ton of mounting points on the frame here. We have 3 here, which allowed me to move my bottle cage up higher, but we have a mount here for a water bottle cage. We have one here. And on the bottom side here, we also have 3 more mounting spots. So now realistically, if you wanted to, you could use 3 water bottles on this thing. Now, it may seem a little weird the fact that I'm excited for water bottle mounts, but coming from a full suspension cross-country bike previously, where I could only fit 1 water bottle inside the frame, having 2 is going to be huge if I decide to do any more races. Get subscribed because there's going to be an announcement coming soon on that. This RockShox Silo RC Silver has 130 millimeters of travel, which definitely puts this in the trail category of hardtails. Now, this is not the lightest fork in the world. In fact, it is actually quite heavy at 2,800 grams, and that's with the steer tube uncut. Now, something to mention about these bikes that if you do order them, you are going to have to put this together yourself. They do not come fully assembled. In fact, the steer tube is something you have to cut down to a size that you want. Overall, this fork has been pretty solid. I haven't had too many issues with it. It does have a lockout. You want to lock it out. It's got 35 millimeter stanchions, so it's nice and beefy and stiff. It's not the most plush fork that I've used, but this is great for anybody who's getting into riding. This is going to be more than capable for most people that are going to buy this bike. The bike does come spec'd with a MicroSHIFT XLE 11-speed drivetrain. I have to say, I have used MicroSHIFT drivetrains in the past, and I've liked those. This one is even better. I really like this drivetrain. The shifting is crisp, it's snappy, it feels great. I love that they put this on this bike because it is so good. On the back here, we have an 11-46 tooth cassette, which is going to provide more than enough range. Back here, we have the XLE derailleur, which does have a clutch. Up front here, we have a 32 tooth chainring and 165 millimeter cranks for the size small medium. Now, coming back to those cranks real quick, a really nice thing that State Bicycle Co. does is that they will size the cranks specifically to the size of the frame. So for instance, on my size small medium here, I have 165 millimeter cranks. If you get an XL size frame, you get 175. They're picking different sizes, frame size, and that's amazing. I'm so happy to see that. They understand that not everybody needs 175mm cranks. Now, something that really did surprise me is the brakes on this bike. It came with Textro hydraulic disc brakes, and these are actually the nicest Textro brakes I've ever used. They have a nice pull, they have a great lever feel. They're not cheap, they look really good. These perform really good. They bedded in super easy. I had no issues with them. The lever feel is really nice. It's got a nice stiff pull on it. It kind of reminds me of Shimano a little bit. They are a bit long on the blade, so you do need to run them in quite a bit. In fact, I could probably get away with putting them in a little bit further. I would run these brakes on this bike without any issues. I think they do so well. Now, there's things that I like about the wheel set and there's things that I hate about them. I do love the fact that it came with WTB fast rolling, tubeless ready Trail Boss tires. I love that, especially the fact that they came tan wall is just icing on the cake. It looks great. These are amazing tires. I really like these. The one thing I don't like are these rims. Now, this isn't against anybody who spec these rims, but I have a history with the WTB ST I-30 rims, just any of the WTB rims. I don't like them. They have never been very durable for me. I have dented them, broken spokes. I have not had good experiences with these rims. Most people are not gonna have any issues with these rims. They're gonna work just fine for everybody. But for as heavy as they are, I would expect them to be a little bit more durable. Now, I haven't had any issues with this set yet, but it's a great wheel set. They're nice and wide. They've got a 30mm internal diameter, means that 3.4-inch wheel tires fit beautifully. Real quick, again, tan walls out of the box? Yes. On the topic of the wheels and the tires, everything is tubeless ready out of the box. The tires are tubeless ready. The rims are tubeless ready. They come pre-taped. You even get tubeless valves in the box, so you can immediately go tubeless with this. The only thing you're missing is some sealant of your choice. My experience of switching this over to tubeless wasn't perfect. The rim tape job is not always very good, and I ran into that with this. I immediately had air leaking through the spokes. I retaped them and they were good to go. One thing that is very nice to see is that you do have internal routing for the dropper post, but you have external routing for the brake and the shift line. I like that, to be honest, because like on a steel bike, I think it kind of makes sense where you want the ability to easily work on your bike if you need to. And when you have the cables just run on the outside, it's so easy to replace or to fix. It's so nice. Now, I did struggle with the internal routing of the dropper post a little bit. For whatever reason, this area right here was just really tight. One thing to note here is that there is no internal routing here, so you kind of have to old school fish it through the top here if you want to run your dropper. You may be noticing that these are not the stock grips, and that's because I had to change them for safety reasons. I mean, this isn't necessarily anything bad about those grips. They're just not lock-on grips. And I constantly found that as I was going downhill, it would move in and in and in, and just leaving the little plug on the outside ready to like hurt me if I crashed. I might have. On the last ride, I did swap these out for some proper lock-on grips. These are the Trail 1 Hell's Gate grips. Now, I don't think I'm going to be keeping these on here if I keep the bike. I will be going with probably like Rev grips, because I love Rev grips. They work so well and they keep my hands nice and, you know, not fatigued. Just a couple specs real quick. The bars are 770mm wide, which is perfect for me. That's kind of like where I like it anyways. Now, if I was to ask State Bicycles to change one thing, I would ask them to spec lock-on grips on this thing instead of just the slip-on grips, because they move around too much and I would rather see lock-on grips for that. Stock saddle, it's pretty comfortable. I have no issues with it. I haven't been riding a ton, so being able to just hop on this thing without a bibs or a chamois without any issue has just been fine. One other thing about them speccing frame-specific items, depending on what size frame you get will depend on what size dropper post you get. If you go with the larger sizes, you'll get a larger drop of a dropper post. Mine came with 150 millimeters. The 150 millimeter drop might be a little bit much for this size frame. I can't go down much more than this if I recall correctly. I'll have to double check. So climbing performance, this thing climbs relatively good given the fact that it is a 35-pound bike with pedals. It could definitely climb better if it was a little bit lighter. But overall, with that 130 millimeter fork at 65 degrees, these really aggressive tires, this thing climbs decently well. It's not the fastest thing up the hill, but you're on a hardtail, so it does climb better than most other bikes. Where this thing does shine is the downhill with that steel frame, the 130 millimeter fork, the tubeless tires. This thing feels so good going down the trail, especially because it kind of gets rid of all the harsh impacts. It really can smooth out that trail chatter. And honestly, I have felt way less fatigued at the end of a downhill on this bike than other bikes, even some full suspension bikes. I feel great when I get down to the bottom of the hill and my legs aren't fatigued like I thought they might be. So now the all important question, am I keeping it? Duh. I mean, this bike is awesome. I'm gonna have to send some money to State Bicycle Co. because I want this bike and I have plans for this bike. Get subscribed because I'll be kind of sharing my plans here soon about what I plan to do with this bike in terms of upgrades and in terms of the races that I plan on doing. So this is just the beginning of a new style of video here on the MTB Rad Dad channel. This is Adam and this is the MTB Rad Dad channel. And you know what? I'll see you next time.